Welcome to Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil, the official Monster Jam podcast. I'm Scott Jordan. My guest this week just completed her first season behind the wheel of Sparkle Smash on Arena Championship Series Central. So let's fire up the Zenny Optical Hotline, head to North Carolina, and welcome in Jamie Sullivan. Jamie, welcome back to Inside Monster Jam. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super stoked to talk about this year behind the wheel of Sparkle Smash.
Lots happened since the last time I had you on. Let's first talk about your graduation from UNOH, because you posted that on Instagram. First of all, congratulations on that. I know that was a huge moment for you, but talk about that moment, what it meant for you, and what it means for your career moving forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, it's so awesome to be able to graduate from such a really great school that got me really my job with Monster Jam. You know, I got my degree in automotive and high performance motorsports, and then I ended up adding on that 2+2 program, which was the marketing. And I did that online from the hotel room while I was doing Monster Jam and at the arena. So it was really cool to be able to graduate from that and have such an awesome degree behind me, as well as an awesome job that UNOH landed me.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's inspiring that you were able to continue to live your dream and get this career that a lot of students would aspire to. In the meantime, you're back in your hotel room plugging away on your laptop. So very inspiring. Well done for continuing that journey. But now let's move to Sparkle Smash, because last year it was Monster Mutt Dalmatian for the first couple years of your career. When did you find out that Sparkle Smash was going to be on your radar for 2025?
Yeah, so actually at the end of the 2024 season, I found out it was about, I think, October or so. I found that I was going to be driving Sparkle Smash, and, you know, I kind of just really, I really didn't think it was going to happen. You know, driving Monster Mutt Dalmatian the last couple years, it was super phenomenal, but to step into a truck that had just been introduced by Kayla Blood, it was really epic. And, you know, now getting to drive it and really just see how much these little girls look up to you as a driver, even little boys as well. But, you know, to represent for those girls out there, that means the absolute most to me. So that has been so awesome to be able to do that.
How cool is it to be able to drive this larger-than-life toy? Because I have made no bones about it on this show. Sparkle Smash, as a girl dad, has a special place in my heart. We have all the toys, from the small ones to the big ones, and you get to drive the life-size version. So how cool is that?
You know, it's definitely very cool. I actually have 5 nieces of my own, and, you know, they're really big into unicorns and pink and glitter. So, you know, it fits really well. And to be able to represent not only for those little girls and little boys out there, but also my very own nieces, it's so cool. And, you know, it's a great time because people will come to the track and it's their first time seeing the 12,000-pound unicorn, and they are literally blown away, especially when I get to shoot the confetti. It's a little bit tough to see out of this truck. It's definitely a lot harder than a Monster Mutt Dalmatian, but it's just a blast going out there and being able to, you know, shoot the confetti, like I said, and just be able to represent for all those girls in the stands, because you see them up there cheering you on, and, you know, it means the most.
If you ever need somebody to fill in on shooting the confetti for you, I'm going to throw my name into that hat. I'm glad you talked about vision a little bit. I want to get technical with this, because is this the same chassis you drove Monster Mutt Dalmatian on, or is this a different chassis?
So this is the exact same chassis. I've been driving this chassis actually the last 3 years. But as far as the body goes, it's definitely a lot different. The nose comes around a little bit further, so it blocks a lot of that vision from like down below by the tires. You can't see past the sidewall, the inside sidewall of the tires. So it's definitely a little bit tough as far as that goes. And then it seems like the nose is a little bit stretched out as well. So it's definitely something I've kind of had to adjust to. And I know Kayla's had that same problem. And, you know, it's just something you got to keep working with, and hopefully just kind of judge it from afar more than like judging it up close like I was in Monster Mutt Dalmatian.
How does the confetti work? They tell you when you have to shoot the confetti off, or is that something you just feel the crowd out for? And I'm just absolutely curious as to how all of this happens, because it still blows me away that we have a unicorn that shoots confetti in Monster Jam.
Well, so at first I was actually told I was only supposed to shoot it. I think it was in intros, and then I didn't end up having my own intro. And then I said freestyle to do it then, and I was like, okay, I did it in freestyle the first couple weeks, and I'm like, all right, I got to kind of put my own spin on it and do it whenever I kind of want to. So I started out doing it in like different jumps. Starting out freestyle, I would do it or I would do it in donuts or doing some moonwalks or even some sky wheelies. I'd start doing it. And, it definitely became a really big hit. And the fans absolutely loved it. There was even one time I actually launched it onto Zombie when he was coming off the track. And it was just great. It was so funny to see his face. It was priceless.
Zombie needs a little color. Coming up next, more with Jamie Sullivan as we talk all things Sparkle Smash right here on Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. Welcome back to Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. I am joined this week by Jamie Sullivan as we discuss her first year behind the wheel of Sparkle Smash. Let's talk about Arena Central, the most, I think, entertaining competitive series in all of Monster Jam. You were right there. You finished third, just 2 points behind Matt Cody, but my goodness, John Zimmer Jr., Matt, you, Fernando Martinez, you had the Robbins brothers, Angelina, just stacked from top to bottom, and I loved the competitiveness on this series. Did that, being on that series and watching that series points lead just go back and forth between, nearly 4 of you, did that really elevate you as a competitor to have to go up against those guys every night?
This was my third season, my third first quarter, and it was pretty epic to be like lined up with all these drivers. You got John Zimmer Jr., who's really, I think, the best up and coming driver there is right now in the sport. You've got, like you said, the Robbins brothers, it was their first year, but they were taking over all event wins like it was nothing. So, it was definitely pretty cool to be able to go alongside them and drive alongside them. We could all learn from each other, and that was, I think, the best thing about it was we could all just take different key components away from each other and learn different tricks. And that was definitely something that kind of motivated me to actually keep pushing even harder. And, it's definitely a blast to be able to do that and actually get to learn even more from even people who are just getting into the sport. It's crazy how much these young ones know about Monster Jam. Montana is only 19 years old and he is just really a great driver already, and so who knows what's going to happen in the years to come. But yeah, no, it's really awesome to be alongside them. Me and Matt Cody, we ran right down to that last event. He beat me by 2 points for the second place spot. So it was really cool to be able to compete. And, he even said it himself. It was like almost running for first place.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch that season unfold. I'm excited to see where you are at next season, but I know you've had some high points here in 2025. You were able to kick off the season in Nashville where you met one of my favorite artists, Jelly Roll. Talk about that experience for you.
It was so epic meeting Jelly Roll. We didn't really expect him to come. I think it was Saturday morning we found out that Jelly Roll was coming. And, I'm a country music fan at heart. And to be able to actually meet him and just see how he is as a person, he's the exact same person that he puts himself out to be. And, that was really cool to be able to actually experience that, get a selfie with him. Such a great person all around. And, we actually went to a concert I think 3 weeks ago, and we actually got to go VIP and see him up close and personal thanks to all their team. So it was really cool to be able to do that.
So you and I have been communicating on Instagram. I always put it out there for fan questions. I did not realize how popular your crew chief, Nick Bolger, was until I posted that. You go to Instagram, you'll see a picture of Jamie and her crew chief, and everybody pining for Nick to be on the show. So Nick, hopefully you're listening, watching. I'm going to reach out to you, but let's talk about your relationship with him and how influential he has been in the success you've had.
I had Nick actually as my crew chief last year for the first time. And, there's never a moment that Nick is not touching the truck. He is constantly touching that truck, making sure every single component is tight, ready to go, and ready to hit that track. Such a great person, too, all around. Hard worker, there's nothing I can say bad about him. He is an absolute great crew chief. And so I had to request him this year. I was really thankful to be able to get him again this year. And I'm going to have him again for World Finals. And, it's definitely great to have that connection with them. And you guys kind of know each other. Me and Nick, we've been working together for the last 2 years. So we can each tell each other how we're feeling about the truck, what's going on with the truck. And he understands what I mean. And, it's definitely great to have that connection so we can continue building the success.
Now, was Nick, when you found out you were moving into Sparkle Smash, was Nick a little adverse to wearing pink and purple, or is this something that he just embraced fully? Because I would be all Team Unicorn.
I think he embraced it pretty fully. Like that first weekend, I actually got to my truck and there's a pink unicorn sticker on my seat. So I think he definitely embraced it pretty well. He had his own little beanie. It was a unicorn as well. So he definitely embraced it pretty well, and I think he loves it. He did love the Monster Met Dalmatian, but I feel like he can definitely kind of cater towards this one more with different hats or different apparel, and so I think he enjoyed that.
Well, I think, also maybe having a flashy hat like you have on would also suit him very well. Looking behind you, that poster, I talked about this with you off air. That's an amazing addition to your house there. What is the story behind that?
Yeah, so I definitely cherished being in Monster My Dalmatian. Driving that for 2 years was my first truck I ever drove for Monster Jam. So my boyfriend actually got that for me for my birthday, and it's great for these videos as well to be able to put behind me, and something to cherish as I move on in Monster Jam. You can't go wrong with having your first truck behind you, and that's gonna definitely be a memory for my entire life.
I think he did an amazing job, and if I saw that at a merch stand, I'd be all over that. So hopefully maybe our marketing people are taking a look at that, and we can see some of those come out next year. Coming up next, we are going to look back at Jamie's electric World Finals performance at SoFi and look ahead to Salt Lake City. That is next on Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. Welcome back to Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. I'm Scott Jordan. Monster Jam fans, it is time for you to rev up your vision, courtesy of our good friends at Zenni Optical. Make sure you go to zenni.com/monsterjam because we have the deal for you. You can save 10% off your order by entering the code MonsterJam. And our friends at Zenni have everything you could possibly want, from designer frames to readers, prescriptions, sunglasses, you name it. They've got it. I've got the year of the snake. I want to see you in your Zennis. Zenni.com/MonsterJam. Go there now and save 10% off your order. Jamie Sullivan, welcome back to the show. I love the pink hat. I've said that, but I'm sure you've got some awesome Sparkle Smash themed Zenni shades that you rock out there on the road as well.
We actually, on our tour this year, we actually kind of made it a trend for our intros. We were all wearing the Zenni Optical sunglasses and just kind of doing some crazy intros. So you definitely have to go back on YouTube and check that out. But, this hat also, I just want to point out, it's from Tristan England, made me actually buy a real cowboy hat. So this is going to actually be broken out right at World Finals for the very first time.
That's awesome. He has one for each day of the year, so I assume he'd be the guy to go to for cowboy hats. Let's talk about World Finals before we move forward. Let's go back, because I said this before when we did the Superstar Challenge in Anaheim way back in November of 2023. That was at that point your star-making turn. It was at that point that you started this ascension to the top of the sport. And I'm hardly ever right, but I was so happy to be right about that because you have proven me right. So thank you. But you go to World Finals last year and you just knock everybody out of the park. I mean, 4th in freestyle. You become the first female to compete in skills, and then you go to the quarterfinals in racing. Just an absolute superstar-making turn. What are your memories looking back at SoFi and World Finals 23?
It was definitely just, amazing to be able to go to SoFi Stadium, of all places. That be my World Finals debut. It was really epic. And, like you said, it went pretty well for us. Actually, in qualifying and practice, I was terrible at racing, and somehow something clicked. I got through the berm way better when it came to the actual showtime, and worked out in our advantage. And then, like you said, 4th in freestyle. It was really cool. Every time I get the chance to do 2 backflips, I'm gonna do 2 backflips. So you definitely better check that out also at World Finals this year. It's gonna happen, hopefully, fingers crossed. But you know what? It's always a great time to be able to do World Finals, and like you said, it's definitely gonna be epic this year. It's definitely a different track. It's not like it was last year, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. This year, we've got a couple different tricks me and Nick were kind of working over and kind of talking about. So hopefully it's going to go a lot better this year. We're gonna try our best, being the only girl out there and trying to represent Sparkle Smash. We're gonna go for it. We're gonna send it all. The truck might come in 4 pieces, 5 pieces, but you know what? We're going to go out there and try to get that win.
So we're going to fire up the crystal ball, the, Doc Brown, DeLorean, whatever you want to say, because this episode is going to air on Racer after World Finals. So, Jamie, let's just pretend that it's already happened. Our fans have already watched it, and we're here live in the studio. How many World Championships did you win in Salt Lake City? Let's tell everybody.
We hopefully won 1 World Championship. We took that skills win out of those boys' hands, and we got that win with a cool backflip doing a skills competition.
I love that. We're gonna build that into fruition here in Salt Lake City. I want to discuss your opinion of the track. It's the elevated turn track, I guess is what everybody's calling it at this point. Now that little horseshoe on the one side, the big horseshoe on the other. What are your thoughts when you look at that? Because I've been salivating at it. I can't wait to see what you guys do on this thing. But from a driver's perspective, is it a driver's track for you? Are you excited to get out there?
I think it's going to get pretty wild for sure. It's going to be like how you take that berm, that big berm going into the stands. That's going to definitely play a lot when it comes to who wins what race. Because if you come out of there sideways, coming down that straightaway to hit that last jump, or, just to even continue on your race, it's going to get a little wild. You could definitely tear some stuff up. You could go sideways off that jump. So it's going to be pretty crazy out there. I do think racing last year in World Finals is definitely a driver's track. This one could be a driver's track, like I said, depending on how you exit that berm. But it's gonna get pretty crazy. And if it rains as well, that's gonna play a huge factor into what happens exactly with this track.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be 100 degrees and dry there every day. So we may avoid the rain, but we may not avoid heat exhaustion at all out there. But I want to circle back here. We got a few minutes left of this segment before we head to fan questions. But the Sparkle Splash fan base, it's not just girls. I see boys out there with the unicorn diecast, and I see moms and dads in Sparkle Smash T-shirts. When you represent this fan base, I mean, obviously it's a huge toy. It's one of the best-selling Spin Master diecasts we've ever had. But now the fan base continues to grow. What are you seeing in real time out there? Did you see that at all grow this year throughout the season?
Oh, 100%. You actually see the Sparkle Smash line longer than the Gravedigger line, and that's super wild to me. Gravedigger's been around forever, but to see that Sparkle Smash line even longer, it's really cool. These kids, like I said, they're seeing it for the first time, and they're just amazed because they never thought a unicorn would become a monster truck. So, the kids look up to it. They also, I swear, they come out decked in their Sparkle Smash gear more than they did the Monster Mutt Dalmatian gear. So it's really cool. They got their little tutus, they got their little bows in their hair with Sparkle Smash. So it's really awesome.
That's got to be a great moment for you because obviously Monster Mutt Dalmatian has its own fan base, but you never really saw a whole lot of fans showing up in the Dalmatian colors. But now you look in even this weekend in Athens where Sparkle Splash wasn't even there were so many pink T-shirts out there. So many. We had the plush trucks, we had the diecast toys, they had T-shirts and hats at the merch stand. That's got to be awesome for you when you win a competition to go out there to center pod, look around the room, and just see pink and purple and blue and glitter everywhere.
Oh yeah, like I said, it's great, especially, like I said, getting to represent for those girls, taking those wins from the boys, it's definitely a good time. And, I think I've gotten at least 50 bracelets this year, and I keep them in a little keepsake to have for further in the future. And, it's so awesome to be able to have that special bond with the little girls and the little boys, like you said, coming up with their unicorn trucks. And, it's been just a blast.
So is that a special thing that you share with the fans? I think Taylor Swift does something like that, where her Swifties give her bracelets. Are you starting this Sullivan Sparkle Smash bracelet fest here?
I guess so, but it's also funny you mentioned that because I had a couple little girls like throughout the season ask me if I'm a Swiftie, so I think that's pretty ironic.
I think there's worse people in the world to be associated with than Taylor Swift. She's the biggest musician on the planet. Coming up next, you take over the show with your questions for Jamie Sullivan on Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. We are back with more Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. My guest this week is Sparkle Smash driver Jamie Sullivan, joining me on the Zenni Optical Hotline. We have fan questions right now. You can get your questions in each week by following me on Instagram at ScottJordanMJSX. We have talked about some of these already, but feel free to go in a different direction if you want to. Monster Jam Kid asks, how does it feel to go to World Finals after you upset many drivers at World Finals last year? Last year, and I'll say this, you were flying under the radar a little bit last year. You were, a surprise entrant. And now this year, I feel like you have a target on your back, and people are never going to underestimate you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely going to be even crazier this year with that berm. Like I said, it's going to get pretty wild. So we're going to take it with a grain of salt. We're going to come out here, hopefully get those wins. But you know what? We're going to have fun doing it, and that's what it's all about.
Okay, SpongeBob Fan 23 is cool. Great name. Has a technical question going back to the glitter. Asking, can you possibly shoot the glitter mid backflip? That would take a lot of concentration and a lot of talent. But I am now also very curious if in midair you could shoot the glitter.
That definitely has been in my thoughts, and I actually saw that comment, and it's a little bit tough because I have to actually flip a switch, and then I have a button on the shifter to actually shoot the confetti. So we're going to have to try to work it out, maybe hopefully flip the switch earlier on in freestyle, and then maybe if I do a backflip, hopefully do it. But fingers crossed it's going to work. I don't know exactly. We're going to try our best, though. I promise.
All right. Last time you were on the show, we talked about your start in Monster Jam with JR McNeil on the independent circuit, and Maxer RT is asking what's the biggest difference between driving for JR and driving for Monster Jam.
You know, JR was an independent monster truck team. It was Raising Cane Monster Trucks. And so driving for them was a little bit different because I did actually wrench on my own truck as well. So I was with Buddy Tompkins. We were together as a team, and we kind of did the all-star monster truck tour. And that kind of actually ignited my Monster Jam career as well. You know, getting to work with them and learn the trucks and how to work on them as well as driving them. It really taught me a lot to come into Monster Jam. So it's definitely a little bit different. I'm now driving for Monster Jam. So I don't have to work on my own truck. I do still try to work on my own truck at some points if it's needed. So I do try to help Nick when it comes to that. But, you know, it's definitely a lot different, not constantly working on your own truck and traveling kind of with the semi at sometimes, you know, but now getting to actually drive for Monster Jam, it's a little bit different.
All right, I love that. Shout out to old friend Phil Vishananza saying, "You can't tease me like this. I thought Nick was going to be on as well." That started that, and I will do my best. Brennan Jopp, last question for you. How much seat time does a feld driver like yourself get at MJU per year during the postseason after World Finals to continue to hone in your skills? You guys don't get to go there, right? Very, very much at all. So how are you able to stay in tune? Because you've really elevated, especially in skills, to be one of the top 8 in the world. So what are you doing to take the place of MJU?
You know, like you said, we don't get a lot of time, but ironically enough, I actually went last week for the week to actually learn some skills, you know, got to do some arena bicycles, which is something I've been trying to work at and do so I can do that in the 2025 season or even in the summer this year. But I also got to work on some combos, trying to get it off the pod and get it onto the back tires onto the pod. So, you know, some different combos we've been working on. I got to do a little racing, but like you said, we don't get much time. I actually got 3 days last week to hone in these skills, but half of the one day was actually ruined by rain. So, you know, we come out to all these events throughout the weekends, and that's our learning experience. We get to actually learn out there, you know, try new things. That's how we learn when it comes to Monster Jam.
Well, I'm glad you got to go back to where it all started for you at MJU. So, Jamie, thank you so much for spending some time with me. Great to see you again. Great to catch up. Congratulations again on an awesome season. Looking forward to seeing where next year takes you.
Thank you guys so much. Super fun to be on here and get to actually, you know, really relive some of these memories.
Jamie Sullivan, everybody, Team Sparkle Smash. That is all the time we have. I'll see you next week on Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil.